Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. If you're in Central Time, it's 8 o'clock. So have a great day. I hope everybody does. Please, if you're going to be out there traveling the highways this weekend, please be safe. With the 4th of July, this is the one time that I always refuse to get on the road. The only time I've ever deviated from that, I ended up almost dying because I had a guy that ran me off the road that wasn't paying any attention. But anyway, today we're going to talk about the washer dryer combo MFC 120-DU. This is a washer and dryer combo. It's an all-in-one. They're very popular. They're full-size ones out there now. LG has one. GE has one. I think that I even saw one from Samsung has now got one. So we're going to talk about this combo washer and dryer. This is a little bit smaller model. It's really great for a little bit smaller area, like if you lived in New York. The first thing that we want to talk about is the error codes. Okay, that's if I'm going to do work on this unit, I want to be able to know what the error codes are. So how do I tell what the error codes are? So like if this error code populates in my little display, if I get an E10, it's telling me that in 7 minutes the water level did not change with the valve open. So that tells me that I have a water issue. If I open the door to it and I look and I've got plenty of water in it, then that tells me that I have a board issue. Just simple stuff. So the unit will close the valve and stop operation with an error code in the display. If this happens, then if it sits there for 7 minutes, okay, could be low water pressure. What am I going to do? I'm just going to check it and see. If the water inlet hose could be kinked, it could be that it is stopped up. I'm going to have to check that. So I'll just take that out off the back of the machine and go inside and try to fix that. Could be that the water inlet valve, the voltage to the inlet valve is not normal. Could be that this operates on 110 volts. It could be that this unit is actually I do not get my 110 volts to my water valve. Could be that my water level switch or the control switch is bad. Of course, if that's it, I've got no voltage to the water line, the water inlet valve. So that water valve control switch tells the unit how much water it's getting in it. So that's just some of the issues if I get an E10. There are other codes that are prevalent. One is an E12. That just tells me that the unit is overflowing. So the unit will close the valve and stop operation with the error code in display after a while. It may take it a little bit of time. So what's the causes of this? Sometimes all I have to do is restart the unit, and that'll solve the issue. I would tell you that's the last thing I'm gonna be checking. The first thing I'm going to check is I'm going to check my water inlet valve. So I've got to make sure that my water inlet valve that the voltage shuts off. Okay. It could be that the washer is overflowing. The inlet valve itself has failed and it's leaking through the valve. So I may have to replace that inlet valve. It could be that my water level sensor or my basically a float switch, the one that tells the board, okay, I've got plenty of water shut off the water inlet. So if that's bad, my water valve, my water level control switch controls how much water enters the washing machine by the PCB. If the water level control switch is defective, a small pipe attached to the area and the bell could be restricted. So I'm going to have to check that. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to check the air pipe. I'm going to check the water level sensor, and then I'm going to check the PCB. So that's all I'm going to do. I can do a visual check for the air pipe to see if the air pipe has any restriction in it. I can blow on the tube to see if it shuts it off. I can take and check my PCB, seeing what voltage I get through there, and if I'm not getting voltage, telling the unit, telling the board to shut the water valve off, that's my problem, and I'm going to have to replace that PCB. One of the other codes is an E20 that tells me that I have a pump open circuit. So the unit will close the valve and stop operation with that E20 area code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to check that pump. Not only am I going to check the pump, but I'm going to check to make sure that something could be a baby sock. It could be a little small cloth. If it's gone over the side of the tub and it's gotten in between the inner and outer tubs, that could be my problem. So I'm going to have to check that to make sure that that's not my pump out open circuit. Could be that the pump sensor is bad, and it could be the inner wire of the pump could be bad. The only way I'm gonna know that is to unplug the pump, the electricity to the pump. I can check my power to that, make sure that I have my 110 volts coming out of that. And then if that's the case, I'm going to either have to, and I do not have the problem with something's restricted the pump, I'm going to have to replace that pump. So if I get an E21, that tells me that the washer hose is not draining, or the drain times are out of sync. So the unit will close the pump and stop the operation whenever, and it will default to an E21. So I need to make sure that first thing that I do is I'm going to go in, excuse me, and I'm going to check to see what error codes I find. If you want to, whenever this will be probably, it's not going to probably make it till Monday. And then it will show up, and you will be able to keep all of these error codes if you don't have these error codes from Magic Chef. Okay, so once again, my E21, I'll check the pump, I'll check the drain hose, and then the final thing I'll check is the PCB. Okay, E30, the washer door will not lock. So the unit attempts to lock the door 6 times. If it can't lock it, it throws this E30 error code. So I've either got a door lock issue or a PCB issue. So I'm just going to check the door lock, making sure that there's no obstruction in the door lock itself, and it so that it can lock. If that's not it, then I know that I probably got a bad PCB, and I'm going to have to go to the PCB and double check the power coming out of the PCB. Okay, E31, the washer door will not unlock. Okay, this is the one that I've seen the most, is the E31. So this is telling me that I've got either a bad door lock or a bad PCB. So if the lock will not unlock, the door lock assembly might be defective. In the door, that being said, the door will not unlock, so it won't release the door itself. So one of the things that I can do is I can unplug the unit, let it set for at least a minute. Then I can plug it back in and see if that will take care of it. If not, I may have to go to the PCB, and I'm going to need to check my PCB to make sure that I actually have I actually have power that to unlock the door. Okay, you have to pardon me. I've got a little about to get allergies are about to tear me up. So if I have an E33, that tells me that my water level sensor is an error, has an error to it. So the unit will not close the valve and stop the operation with an error code. That's what will happen. That usually tells me that my water sensor, my water level sensor, or my control switch is going bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the water level sensor, then I'm going to check the PCB. It's pretty simple. Okay. If I have an E37, says that in the drying process, the temperature sensor of the air outlet is wrong. So I'm going to check the inner wire before replacing the temperature sensor. I've got to make sure that I have my power that's actually going from the temperature sensor to the board. So if I have an E38, it says in the drying process, the temperature sensor in the air intake is wrong. So I'm going to have to check that air temperature sensor again. So I'm going to check the wire, and then if I find that that's okay, I'm going to have to replace the sensor itself. So if I have an E3A, that tells me that my dryer heater is open. If that's open, of course, I'm going to have to double check just to be sure that the temperature sensor, I'm going to check that temperature sensor first. And then after I do that, I'm going to check the wire to the PCB, the fan motor heater, or the temperature sensor, make sure that those are all wrong. And then all I have to do is do a resistance check on the heater, and just to make sure that I have a good heater. That would be the last thing. One of the other things that's common for this unit is there may be lint on the fan wheel or the condenser of it. So that could be that E3A. So I need to check that. If all of that checks, I'm going to check the lint on the fan wheel and the condenser. Right. So after I've checked all of that and it's good, I'm going to have to go back. If you go through all these and I still got an E3A, I'm probably going to have to replace that board. Okay, so right here is where these are located. Okay, so the outlet temperature, you can see that right there. It's called out, has a big circle around it. Then right there is the heater. Okay, then on the bottom there, that's the intake temperature sensor. So I got to make sure that that's right. And then of course the fan motor right there, and then the thermostat. All right. So we're going to continue on. If we have an E40, we have a memory chip error. So I have a broken memory chip, and then I'm probably going to have to replace that PCB if I get that E40. Okay. E70 tells me that I have a stuck button. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to disassemble the control panel and then clean it up. Of course, I'm never going to spray directly onto that. I'm going to take a cloth. I'm going to spray a little bit on the cloth, and then I'm going to wipe it off. Never spray directly onto the PC, onto the touchpad. Okay. E64, I have a transducer error. So I'm going to have to, the only thing I can do is check that wire. And then if that doesn't work, I'll have to replace that transducer. Okay. If I have an E50 or an E50X, the X represents a different letter or number. I have a transducer error again. I'll have to check the connectors. And then if that doesn't work, I'll have to replace that transducer. So if I have an E64, an E50, or an E53, an E5X, that tells me that I have a transducer error, and I'm going to have to go check those, the wiring to it, or I'm going to have to replace that transducer. If I have an E10, okay, tells me that the water level, wow, I got two of those. Okay. E2. I don't know how that happened. What in the world is going on? Evidently, let me check. Step button right there's where we're at. Okay. As this unit, I don't know what happened. My program didn't want to work properly, so I just fast forwarded through that. So let's talk about our detergent cup. One of the things that I have noticed is customers will try to shove a pod into the detergent cup and then shut the door, and then that does nothing but cause all kinds of problems. Okay, so if you look right here, there's a single one. All right, hang on just a second. Pardon me. The single one that's on the bottom left, on the right side, that's the pre-wash. So I can either put detergent or powder into that. Okay, then I've got the main wash, which is which is the big cup that's on the left. This is the one that they'll shove that pod into, and it causes all kinds of problems. I will tell you that the customer needs to just take and throw the pod into the unit itself. Then, of course, if I'm going to add an additive, anything like a fabric softener, I need to put that right there where that little flower is. Okay, so one of the things that I have discovered is when the customer does all of this, I end up having to take this whole box out and clean it. So it works just like about every other box. You mash the arrow right there on the left, on that left thing. I'm going to mash that arrow down, and I'm going to pull that box out. Whenever I do that, that clip is going to lift, and I can pull it out. Whenever I get ready to put it back in, though, I have to mash that arrow, that clip down, just like that one on the right hand side. I mash that clip down, and I can push that drawer back in. Then I can pull it out. Once I pull it out, I can clean everything out. Take it to the sink. They don't have a sink in the laundry room. Take it to the kitchen sink. Clean that all out. Then tell the customer, hey, listen, we need to take and not put pods in this. Usually that's what happens. I have seen where the customer, for some reason, the detergent did not dispense properly, and I had to actually clean all that out. Okay, so the service panel. What is the service panel? This allows me. I want to unplug the unit. Okay, I'm going to open that little filter cover. Then I can turn the filter down, and then all that does is give me access to this filter. So this is one of the things that I'm going to check if I get that pump error. I'm going to make sure that filter is not clogged. And I'm going to make sure, if it does, I'm going to clean that filter out. I may have to use a little Dawn dishwashing detergent on it, and help if it's built up, and that could cause some of that pump errors. Okay, I can just reinstall it back whenever it's done and it's all taken care of. Then I'm going to make sure that in the cycle, make sure no hot water is selected, as if it could burn you whenever I'm going to pull that out. It's just a little, please be careful. Okay, a test mode. This unit has a test mode, which is great for a little smaller unit. Okay, before entering the test mode, you should empty the machine. Make sure that no water is left in the drum. You can run a spin cycle or open the service panel from the front of the unit and get all the water out. I'm not going to open the front of the service panel and remove the water that way. I'm going to just put it into a spin cycle, and that'll pull it out. Okay. then make sure that all the parts are back in the original operating position. And then here's what I'm going to do. Okay. Shut the machine down by pressing the on off button. Where's the on off button? If it's at the very top right of that display, it says on off. I'm going to disconnect the power plug from the power assembly and connect the power plug again. Once again, I need to let that sit for about a minute so that the board has time to reset. At that point, I'm going to press the button, these buttons in sequence. I'll spit that out in a minute. I'm going to depress the temperature button. I'm going to depress the soil button. Then I'm going to depress the temperature button. Then I'm going to depress the soil button. Okay. That puts the unit into a test mode, and you're going to get 0, 1 is in the display. Okay. So I've now put that into the test mode. Okay. The washing machine doesn't work. So if I have this issue that my machine just won't do anything, I'm going to close the doors washing machine. I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to make sure that I actually I've got power coming to the unit. I can simply put my 110 plug in my meter into it and make sure that I've got 110 and it hasn't tripped the circuit breaker. If I have a water leak, of course, I'm going to go back and look and make sure where the water leak is coming from. It could be coming from the drain pipe. So I've got to make sure that I've run into these where it only did it every once in a while. And for some reason, it was just the way that the washer was. And I had a leak of the drain. So I had to replace the drain pipe or the drain hose. The other thing it could be is that it could be that the inlet hoses are bad. If I see that all I got to do is replace those. Okay. So one of the other things that has happened is I have gone and you go out and you run the unit, and whenever you run the unit, everything seems to be working fine. But I go ahead and drain it and run it at least a couple of times. And then I have found that part of the problem sometimes is there's an obstruction, especially if this is a brand new facility, say the laundry room, they've done work, and that could be the problem. It could be that lint has gotten pushed out and caused a blockage. That's not something most of the times you can fix. Usually they're going to have to call a plumber. But you need to make sure that that's the issue and that it's not something to do with the water, either the standpipe drain, the drain hose, or one of the other outlets. Okay. So there's a particular smell in the washing machine. Okay. So if I get a funky odor, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a clean cycle without any clothes. Okay. Then I'm going to redo it. And then if I still get that funky smell, which is telling me that I still have problems, I can actually put a little bit of vitamin C in there, and that will clean it up, and that gives it a good smell. You can buy that you can buy it you can buy that at Encompass. Okay. So there's water remaining in the softeners box. So you pull it out, and there's a little bit of water that's in the softener box. That's a normal thing. The customer's just going to have to put up with that. The remaining detergent is left on the closed. So the water fast component of a non-phosphorus detergent will leave a little bit of residue to form a line scale. Okay. Once I'm going to have to rinse everything off. Then I'm going to brush away the fleck when the clothes are dried. All I have to do is just clean it off like that, or I can just rerun it and not put anything in it, and that will get rid of the the detergent. All right, the machine still does not fill. I'm going to open the water tap, the water valve. You have to forgive me. This actually is imported, and so I went and tried to clean it up a little bit, but I see that I've missed a couple because it says open the water tap. So I'm going to open the water valve. Then I'm going to check the selection. Then I'm going to check the water. I'm going to see that the pressure is insufficient or not. Then I'm going to put it through the feed water. So I'm actually going to drain the water, see what I get. I'm going to close the washing machine door, check the water inlet pipe, make sure it's not bent or blocked. What they mean by the inlet pipe is the drain pipe. Okay. The washing machine fills and empties at the same time. I have had this problem. So one of the problems that you're going to find is that the drain pipe does, whenever this unit is put into place, it's required that you have at least a 30, I think it's 39, maybe it's 41 inch drain pipe up. And if my drain pipe is not at that level, it will be too low and it will actually cause a siphoning action. Okay. So I've got to make sure that that's the problem, not the problem. And then we have the other problem is that it won't empty. So if this machine has, let's say it sits in a basement, and I will tell you that I used to have a house that the unit sat in the basement and it was a regular washing machine. And I actually had to come back and replumb that area because it was too high. And whenever it went tried to go in, I never got the water out. Okay, so that would be that I got no drain to the washing machine. So I'm going to check that. I'm going to make sure that that's not the problem. I'm going to make sure that I don't have any blockage if I've got where it's not draining. Then if I can't fix this, I'm going to have to tell the customer that they need to call a plumber to get this done. But make sure that you actually have checked all of this and that it's not, the customer doesn't call the plumber and then come to find out it's something with the washer. If I have an excessive vibration, okay, I'm going to level the washing machine. I'm going to check see what the machine is sitting on to check and make sure that the internal packaging from the transportation has been removed. That causes this machine to walk. Okay, bubbles spills from the detergent. That's pretty simple. That tells me that I've used too much detergent, and that would be my problem. I'm going to reduce the amount of detergent that I'm using. The machine stops when the procedure has not been finished. So I'm going to check to make sure that I had no power failure or the water hadn't been cut off somehow. The drainage pump has a noise during the operation. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove that drain pump, see if I've got something stuck into the drain pump. And if I don't have that, I'm probably going to have to replace that drain pump. To stop for some time during the wash stop. Okay, the washing machine adds water automatically because there's too many bubbles in the tube. The washing machine is not being able to read it correctly. So I've got to make sure that I'm going to run a load with nothing in it. See if that gets rid of the issue. If not, I'm going to have to probably go back in, and unplug it and pull the tube off and blow through the tube, see if I can get it out. Okay. If I got no drain or drain exceeding the time, that's my E11, my E20, and my E21. So we got a no drain, or it's exceeding the drain time. I'm going to check the pump filter. Okay, that once again was where we opened that door. I remove that filter. I make sure that I've gotten all the coins, all the other stuff, the lint, the coins, the hair pieces that are in there. I'm going to make sure that that's all taken care of and cleaned out. I'm going to make sure that I don't have any obstacle that is not allowing the water to drain. So the only way I'm going to know that is I may have to whenever I get ready, I'm going to pull that filter off. Whenever I look at that filter, I can stick my finger up into it and feel around and see if I've got anything in there. Okay. Then I'm going to check the wire connection, and I'm going to make sure that I have the wires are working properly, making sure that I don't have a open circuit. So if I do, I'm going to have to replace that harness. This is not a everyday instance. This is the one-off thing. And then lastly, I'm going to check the pump. If the pump comes in and the resistance coil for this pump should be about 30 to 40 ohms. So I'm going to check it. I'm going to flip it over to the ohms scale, and I'm going to check that ohms for the coil, and that should be somewhere between 30 and 40 ohms. If I get all of that and that works, that means that I've got a bad PCB, and I'm going to have to replace the PCB. Okay. The water heater does not run. Okay. If that's an E34, an E35, or an E36. So if the water heater doesn't work, I'm going to check the wiring to the connection. Okay. So there should be enough water in the drum so the heater can start to work. I'm going to check the NTC. So that NTC sensor, I'm going to have to find the corresponding temperature. So if I'm at 80 degrees, my resistance should be 609.3. The maximum resistance should be 626. The minimum resistance, so it's going to be somewhere between 592.7 and 626 ohms. Should be at 80 degrees, should be what I'm going to be reading for the resistance. Okay, so I'm going to check that heater. The resistance should be in range from 10 to 16. You see right there where they're checking the resistance for that heater. They have removed this from the unit. Okay, the door can't be locked. The door. So I'm gonna check. I make sure that the door is closed properly. I'm gonna check the connection to the wires, and then if the wires are open, I'm gonna make sure that the wires don't have they're not open, so that I read resistance through it. Then I'm going to check the door lock. So I'm going to look between pin number 2 and pin number 3 with the slipper held right. So if you look right there, there's a picture of it. Okay. It could be it should be in the range of 30 to 100 ohms. Otherwise, the door lock has a failure. So hold the door slip to the left and the figure above, get a power pulse to the lock between pin 2 and pin 3, and then release the slipper. It should take the place without any movement. Otherwise, the lock has failed. Okay. If I can't unlock the door, this is the one that I have seen the most of. Okay. The power pulse to the lock should be less than 1 second. Otherwise, it's damaged. Okay. So I'm gonna give a power pulse to the lock between pin 2 and pin 3. Once again, this is where I'm going to go. The slipper should move back to its original place immediately. Otherwise, I've got a lock failure. Okay, now the lock can be confirmed, and if it is, I've just got to replace it. If that is not the case, then I'm going to have to replace the PCB. Okay, no water or the water inlet over time. I get an E10. Okay, no water inlet. The drain hose should be over 100 centimeters height from the back from the unit. Hang on just a second. I didn't go and how high is 100 centimeters in inches? How high is 100 centimeters in inches? 39.37 inches. I told you that was about, I thought it was about 39 to 40. So it needs to be somewhere in that 39 to 40 inches up. So check the faucet, make sure that check the valve to make sure that it's fully open so that I get the correct water pressure. The water pressure should be somewhere around 30 to 50 psi. Drain, check the drain hose. If the unit is draining water at the same time, check for a pump failure. When the inlet filter is blocked, I'm going to check the water filter again just to make sure it's not blocked. Okay. No water or inlet over time. That's not E10. Same thing that we talked about. If the wires are open, I'm going to have to replace the harness. If the water valve, I want to double check the water valve. The resistance on the coil should be 4 to 5K ohms. Okay. If not, I'm going to have to replace. If those all check fine, then I'm going to have to replace the PCB. Okay. Water fills, it overflows. So here are my wires that I'm going to check. My resistance on the coil should be between 3 and 5K ohms. Okay, that's for the water inlet valve. Then I'm going to check the connection to the pressure switch. Check the wires for the open cycles. If the wires are open cycle, replace the harness. Check the resistance between terminals. I'll spit that out in a minute. Terminals between terminal 1 and terminal 3 with a meter. And then check the resistance will be okay if the resistance is between 20 and 40K ohms. So I'm going to go between terminal 1 and terminal 3, and I should get somewhere between 20 and 40 ohms. Okay. If it overflows, I'm going to check the capacitance between terminal 1 and 2 and terminal 2 and 3. If all the capacitance is between 40 and 50, that means that the switch is acceptable, and the pressure switch is now confirmed that it works. If that's the case, then I'm going to replace the PCB. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for just a minute. Okay. Okay, guys, are you still having problems connecting? That's funny because I have not had any problems, and it's showing that we have a good connection. Let me just go out and double check something right quick. Nope, it's my Wi-Fi is good, so that's it's got to be something. So can somebody let me know if they're still having issues connecting? Okay. Good. I just wanted to be sure. All right. Let's go ahead and keep moving. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, if you want, my name and my phone number and my email are all scrolling across the bottom. If you have an issue and you need to get in contact with me, text me at that number, and my email. You can send me a message. The email is slower because I only check it about 4 times a day. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back and start finishing up. Okay, so, oops, we didn't finish our other one on slide number 6. If my drum is not rotating, okay, of course I'm gonna unplug the unit, see if I can. Then I'm gonna see if I can manually rotate the drum. Make sure that I don't have something that's hindering the drum from spinning. If that is the case, then I'm going to have to remove the inner basket and find out what it is. If I don't have any problems, I'm going to check the motor. I'm going to see if the drive belt is okay. If I've got a good drive belt, or if it's loose, if it's sloppy, then I'm going to have to tighten it up. If that doesn't take care of it, I'll go ahead and check the wiring harness to make sure that the motor's getting the proper signal. If something happens and I still am having issues, I'm going to check the motor. The resistance on my coils should be around 5.5 ohms. If that is the case, if this unit is not under warranty, I'm probably going to call Encompass. I'm going to make sure that the price is still good for me to repair it, because about the time you have to replace the motor in this unit, I have just about half or 3/4 of what the unit costs. So that would be a thing for the customer to decide. So if I'm going to have to replace the motor, I'm going to call the customer in. I'm going to show her that it's not working properly and ask her what she wants to do. At that point, that's a question. That's something that the customer has to make up their mind as to what they want to do. Okay. Then check the output of the voltage to the inverter, to the motor. Then I can check the wiring harness of the inverter. Then if I need to, I can replace the inverter module. And then the last thing I'm going to do is check the PCB. Okay. The unit does not operate drying or closed or not dry enough. Once again, this is a small unit. If I put this unit in and I overload this unit, my clothes are not going to get dry. This is an all-in-one. You don't pull the clothes out and put them in a dryer. This unit is one of those all-in-one where the unit dries and washes in the same thing. Okay, so if the unit isn't drying, or the clothes are not dry enough, it's going to throw that E37, that E38, or that E3A code. I'm going to check and see if the drum rotates. If not, I've got to figure out why the drum's not rotating. So I'm probably going to have to pull the inner tub. Then I'm going to check the water inlet. That's an E10. Gives me that. I'll make sure that I don't throw that E10 code too. If worse comes to worse, I have to replace that water valve. Check the manual temperature sensor. Make sure that somebody hasn't messed with it, or that it hasn't come unplugged. So I'm going to push on. The normal resistance is less than 5 ohms. So I'm going to make sure that I go and make sure that I have less than 5 ohms. And then that tells me that I have an open circuit temperature, and that would be that it's between 329 plus or minus 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm going to check all the wire connectors, then make sure that the heater drying assembly is all there. So I'm going to check all those wire connections, ensure that the wires are all and all the sensors, the temperature sensor, the heater, the fan flange, and the PCB. I'm going to replace the whole harness if I find that I have an issue there, and then I'll check the temperature in the sensor with a table. Okay, checking the dryer heater. The resistance should be in the range from 8 to 15 ohms. Okay, check the fan flange and the capacitor. I'm going to check to see if I have any failure there. The resistance of the main coil, that's between the blue and the black wires, should be 80 to 110 ohms. The resistance of the vice coil, go between the blue and the brown wires, should be in the range of 90 to 120. Okay. The capacitor should be, if something happens, there's where I'm going to check the capacitance. The capacitor should be between 2.5 UFs, microfarads, with a plus or minus 5%. Okay, so this is continued on. Check the condenser assembly. We're going to look for any accumulated lint, and then make sure that I have no blockage. Then I'm going, if I have to, I'm going to replace the PCBs. Okay, so the temperature checking table. Spit that in, easy for me to say. Okay, once again, this is in Celsius. So if something happens, I can always go to my phone and ask my phone to convert it to Fahrenheit. Okay. So if I have, in Celsius, if I have 20, this temperature sensor is at 20 degrees Celsius. I should have 631 to 509 ohms, and so it should be either the minimum resistance is 461 and the maximum is 495, but I should be somewhere right around 4828. Okay, and of course here's the rest of that table. I had to split it in half, and this is all Celsius again. So like you're gonna have to convert that. Okay, abnormal noise. We've already been through this. I don't think we really need to go back through it too much. So where am I going to look for it? I'm going to remove the trans bolts and the base packing, making sure that all the foam is removed. Don't forget the foam supporting the drum to the base of the foam, the base, and then check where the noise is coming from for some kind of failure. Usually I can hear it, and I'm going to know if I'm got foam that's in there. You can hear that squeal. That pretty much everybody knows that squeal. Okay, if the load is on one side, then I'm just going to have to reload it. One thing about this is not a huge washer and dryer, so I can't put 3 pairs of jeans in there. It's too big. So if they overload it, that could be part of the problem, and it's causing it's not spinning properly, or it could just simply throw the weight to one side. Then once again, is the laundry mixed? If I've got t-shirts and pants and underwear all in one load, I may have gotten it so that the shorts are not in line. It's not spread out evenly. So I may have to just rearrange that. Okay. Is the washing machine installed at an angle? So that's one of the good things that you need to be sure of, is that my washing machine is level. Okay. Adjust the height of the washing machine to keep it horizontal. Just level it out. Okay. Then I'm going to check the counterweight blocks. Okay. I will tell you, I don't know how this happens, but I have been on quite a few that even the manufacturer from the U.S. here actually had a cracked block, and I had to replace it. So I'm going to make sure that my counterweight blocks are right and they're not cracked or missing or chipped or any of that. Okay. The door can't be unlocked. Here's just the physical picture of that. So to stick to, so I'm going to open the service panel just to make sure that there's nothing in it. Checking the pump to make sure that I don't have anything in there. Then in the temperature of the drum, is it higher than 50 degrees centigrade? I'm going to wait for the temperature to drop. Check the unit, see if I can unlock the door. If not, I can use a stick to unlock the door. You can see it right there. I use a screwdriver. I don't use a stick. But I can press on it and I can get it to unlock. Okay. So here it is right here. I'm going to push the slider downwards to open the lock. You can see it right there. Then I'm going to check the door lock, and if it's still not going to work, I'm going to replace it. The only thing I'm going to make sure that I've got is that I have the correct voltage going to it. All right. If I've got no power, we all know what to do. You simply go and make sure that I got 120 volts come to the unit. Once I do that, I go to the board and I measure power in, power out. If something happens and I got power in but no power out, I know I got a bad board. If I've got no power to the board, I know that I've got a break in that wire, the 120 volt wire that goes to the board. So I've got to double check that. Detergent and softener doesn't flow. We're just going to make sure that that I have the correct cup filled, and also making sure that I have the correct water supply. I've got no power. Here it is right here. So pre-wash, there that is all that listed again. Is the detergent caked or hardened? That could be part of my problem. If it is, then I'm going to have to pull it out and clean it. Water leak from the dispenser. This is another problem that we see out there. This is not just this unit. It's many of the other units that are out there, both foreign and domestic. Is the dispenser tray damaged or warped? The one that I had was warped, and I had to replace the whole dispenser tray. That I had to replace the whole thing. Is the detergent or softener put in the correct compartment? That's what we'd already talked about. Is the detergent caked or hardened? We've already been through that. Are the gasket seal and the door cleaned properly? And if not, how often? So you can look, whenever you pull it out, you can look at it and see. If not, I can always clean it and tell the customer that this is something that they need to be doing, or else you're going to be back and you'll have to be charging their $85. I don't know what you guys charge for a 15-minute job. So water leak for the dispenser. Is the door or gasket damaged? If it is, I'm going to have to replace those parts. I can replace just the gasket. If I find water on the floor, is there a split or cracked hose? I will tell you that I had one that that's why I had to replace the door for the dispenser area. That door dispenser, I've had to replace that because it leaked water and got it on the floor. Are the inlet hoses loose or cracked? Replace as needed. Is the washer level? If the washer is not level, I have to re-level it. Are the drain filter and the manual drain hose open? I have to check that to make sure that I don't have any leaks. Okay, we're going to go through disassembling the unit now. Okay, this is really what we came for. So I'm going to remove the top cover assembly. To do that, I have to take the 2 screws holding the top cover on, and then I'm going to slide it backwards. Once I remove those 2 screws, I need a Phillips head screwdriver. Then the next thing I need to do is remove that drawer assembly. So I'm going to have to depress that tab, pull that drawer out. Whenever I pull that drawer out, I'm going to find the 2 screws that are right there that I have highlighted. Okay. Then I'm going to disconnect the control panel subassembly drawer, pull the 2 screws affixed to the drawer. Of course, I'm going to use those 2 Phillips head screwdrivers. At that point, I'm going to remove the control panel subassembly. You can see that. That's where you remove it. There's 2 screws of holding that panel in. And of course, those are Phillips head. Then I'm going to disconnect the control panel subassembly in the body. I have to be really careful as I lift this off. There's 2 slots that affix the controls. I have to be careful not to damage those. Okay. Remove the PCB from the control panel subassembly. So I'm going to remove the 5 screws for that PCB. I do not know why the other ones have disappeared, but there is. You see that one main one. There's one on the bottom. There's one on the other side on the far side, and then there's 2 on the top. Okay, then I can remove that top cover assembly. Then I can check the valves. The cold water valves are on the left. The hot one is on the right. You can see it right there. I can do that. That's how I check those valves. Then I can check the water level switch. Okay, that you can see that water level switch right there. And then the Phillips head screwdriver is what I need to remove that switch. To check the capacitor or the electric filter, it's right there. Once again, I need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove it. Okay, remove the top cover assembly. Then this is to replace the dryer heater, the fan motor, or the temperature sensors. You can see them all right there. You can see where the high voltage right there, center. Then I've got my 2 wires that go to my heater, and I can check all of those. That I only need a Phillips head for that. So here's the flange. Okay, so replace the dryer heater and the fan motor, temperature sensors. So it's funny. Look at that. My circle has now moved. That's why I love converting from PowerPoint to this. So it didn't hold them. So remove the 5 screws affixing the fan flange assembly. So look at the top there. You can see those 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. You can, that's how I get to it. Then you can flush I can get rid of any of the lint that has accumulated. Check and replace the heater temperature sensors. You can see those right there. And I'm going to remove the 8 screws affixing that cover. Okay. If I need to disconnect the front panel and get the spring, I have to be very careful. Okay. Find the spring that's around this door seal. So I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to pull it out from the slot. I don't need any tools for that. Then if I need to, I can check and replace the door lock if I need to. You can see right there in the picture, they have moved it so that they could get the door lock out. The only problem that you have is whenever you go to put this back in place, finding the holes that correspond with it. It takes a little bit of finagling because this is tight unless you remove that whole. Excuse me. I thought I was going to sneeze again. Otherwise, I'm going to have to. Unless I remove that whole gasket, and I really don't want to do that. I can do this from the side. It just takes a little time to learn how to do that. So you're just going to take and peel that gasket around. I'm going to remove these two screws. I can now pull it out. I can get it out and check anything that I need to check. Then whenever I go to put it back, that's where it gets to be a little bit funky. I just have to find the screw holes as I'm pushing it through. Okay. To remove the top cover, we do the same thing. You see it right here. This is we've already talked about taking the top cover off. That was those two screws at the back, and then I'm going to slide it back out. Then I'm going to remove the control panel. Once I do that, I can remove the service panel. Then I can remove the front panel, which you see right here. Remove the 4 screws affixing the front panel to the top and bottom corners and lift the panel up to release it from the cabinet. Then I can check the NTC and the heater from here. Okay, then remove the 4 screws affixing the front panel to the top and bottom corners. This is a repeat of what it was. I just wanted to make sure that we went through this and we got all this right, because the main thing is whenever I lift the panel up to release it from the cabinet, it fits in a little clip. So I got to make sure that whenever I put it back on, that I put that clip back on, that it falls into those clips so it will hold this unit, hold that door on, and then I can screw those 4 screws back into place. Okay, check and replace the heater NTC. That's what we're already talking about. From left to right, terminal 1 is for the heater NTC. Nut affixing the heater, you can see that one. You can see it. Then terminal 2 is for the heater. And then remove the nut to release the heater. So to take this off, I have to unscrew this nut right here. Okay, we're almost done. Our power supply, again, is 120 volts, 60 hertz. Once again, the capacity, the most you can put in this is 2.7. Okay. It is UL certified. It's an inverted drive motor. It has 16 cycle selections. There's your washer cycle. It has an auto water level switch. The max spin speed, 1,300 RPMs. It does have a digital display that is LED. Okay. You do have the ability to add a garment, and then it does have a delay start that is up to 24 hours. Okay. Has an auto balancing sensor, has an internal heater. Trying to find, okay, here's the dimensions. It's only 27 7/16 by 23 1/16 and 33 7/16. Okay. That is 161 pounds. So you can tell this is basically something like what I would put in my, that's what I would put in my motorhome. Okay. But if I've got a little small apartment in New York City that I had, this would have been great. Would have kept me from having to go to the local laundromat and hanging out there in New York City at night. Okay. One of the things that you have to make sure of is that not only did we remove the screws that you see, but they also pull the little plug that goes that goes where the in between the screw and the back of the washer. If they didn't do that, then it will shake violently. And this thing is small, but it will shake. So that's one of the things that I'm going to check if I always have an unbalanced load. Okay. Changing the PCB. This is the main inverter board display. You see it right there. Okay. You've got a main board and then you've got a display board. Then right here, main board 1 is a PCB, and then a display board right here. It's a little bit different PCB. You can see that right there. So it depends on the model. Okay. The motor, change the motor and the connecting wires. It's a SIM motor and a BLDC motor. The old product, this is what my my motor is going to be. PCBs, there's your numbers for those. Okay. If I have a brand new version, this is the part number for the PCB. There's the part for the motor, and then there's the display part number right there. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on what we have been through today? Okay. I don't see anybody writing anything in, so